Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome into the channel. My name is Brent with Investing on the Go. Today we're continuing our series of No 8 to 5 living from our brokerage using Robinhood. This is going to be update week 27 of 2026. We're going to go ahead and hit up a few different areas today, going fairly quickly with very little edit. So we're going to start off by doing our weekly buys and sells, taking a look at the market during that time frame. Then we're going to be jumping into our massive amounts of dividends that were paid this week, over $2,000 of dividends rolling into the account. Then we'll take a look at our updated dividend journal and then dive into our weekly dividend portfolio, kind of showcasing our entire portfolio. I redid this portion here going forward, and we'll do an income breakdown of how much we're making now going forward on a month-to-month and yearly basis. And then we'll go look at our margin, our margin here as well in our Robinhood Live portfolio to kind of showcase how I'm tracking my margin going forward on a week-to-week basis. So with that said, if you guys are brand new here to the channel, I would really appreciate if you go down below, smash that subscribe, smash that thumbs up if you guys are interested in following along on the No 8 to 5 journey. So question for you guys, did you guys buy anything this week? If you did buy or sell, what day of the week did you buy and sell? Let me know down below. Okay, let's go ahead and get into our buys and sells. So buys and sells, let's go up. We made one purchase this week, and that was TDAC. Now, I had a really busy week this week. I put out a video earlier. I did sell one of my rental units. I had to go in, do some signing this week, talk to my property manager, talk to the mortgage company about the escrow capital, do some transfers, call some utility companies to get the last the last writings and stuff like that. So I had a very busy week this past week, but everything is behind me now. I got the cash. It's been transferred over to Fidelity, and it's all working its way into the system to be invested into something. So had a really busy week, but in that time frame, I did make one purchase, and that was TDAC. So on July 2nd, which is Thursday, let's go ahead and pop over to the charts. What took place on Thursday? So here we can see last week, Friday, we opened up on Monday, right on through here. We did actually move higher on the week, and then going into Tuesday, I think, no, we're way back here. Okay, let's look at the 5-day here. Here's the 5-day. Okay, here's Friday, here's Monday. So Monday, Tuesday, market did really well. We broke above that resistance at 740 really early on Monday, and actually closed near mid, 740s on Monday. Tuesday, we opened up, started traveling our way towards that 750, and didn't quite make it all the way up. But Wednesday, we slammed up there pretty, multiple times. We hit 749 and then broke 750 to 751 on Thursday before falling and then bouncing off that 740 support, and then ending exactly in the middle at 745. So this next week is going to be super important. We have seen technology companies kind of falling still, but they're not falling as much as they had previously. So let's go ahead and take a look at TDAC, because that's the one I bought this week. So let's look at the 5-day. As we saw already, market did really good on Monday and Tuesday. Then Wednesday, market kind of sold off a bit because we had the Fed. They didn't really make the market fall as a whole. They were doing some stuff overseas. And then on Thursday, the job data came out, and that's what really kind of spooked the market. We saw that massive drop off in here, and right around this point right here, I did see that the market sold off pretty sharply. We were basically back down at Monday's prices. So I did go ahead and put in a buy right around here at 810, and I purchased TDAC at 2760 something, I believe. Let's go back here. At 2767, I picked up 8 shares. So 2767 right in through here. The market was kind of falling. Again, I'm not trying to time the bottom. I'm not trying to get the absolute top. But hey, a market pullback back to Monday's prices, I'll go ahead and put it in. I went ahead and purchased 8 shares, and it did continue to sell off a bit. But hey, that's okay. We're looking how the market will digest the data going into next week and the week after. And then we have earnings starting off with Netflix and a few others. So it'll be really interesting. Now, that is our market buys. let's go ahead and dive into our massive amount of dividends that we received this week. Now, what company do you think paid me dividends? And also, did you get paid out any dividends this past week? Let me know down below. So, dividends. We had a single payment from dividends, but it was a ginormous one. So, we had ticker symbol TSPY from the Tap Alpha S&P 500. They paid out $2,046.78. And I'm doing my dividends a lot differently now. In the past, I had taken the dividends and transferred into my cash account to use to pay down my expenses. I'll go through my updated command center here sometime during the video, so stick around. But it's been now revamped to include my margin account, my cash account, and how I'm using these accounts now. Okay, so based on our number of shares of 6,934, it paid out 0.2952, which totaled $2,046.78. So that was the very first dividend of the month, and that was a very nice one. So we pop over to the dividend journal. You can see that entry is now in here for July 1st, TSPY, based off our shares, the share amount, and the total dividends paid at Robinhood. So we can see we're off to a very good start going into July already. And all this data, I like to see this visually, that my total dividends so far in 2026, I've made $28,697.62 on a monthly basis. That's a monthly check that I'm receiving of $4,782.94. And every day that I wake up this year so far has been roughly $155.12 just for waking up and doing as I'm doing no 8 to 5, working on my YouTube channel, my real estate business, and other things in between. This is my foundation piece right here. So I'd really like to see this continuing to grow and watching our portfolio continue to grow as well, right? That's the thing. Okay, so that is the dividend portion. Now, let's go ahead and jump into the next area here, the weekly dividend portfolio and income breakdown. Now, I did update this a bit. Let's make sure everything is showing up on the recording. It is. So I removed my margin positions and I smashed them together now because I'm going to be handling my margin kind of separate from what it is in here. So I'm tracking everything as it is, and all these numbers are updated as they show in Robinhood. So TDAC I made on the 2nd of July. I joined all my margins together. So my old shares that I had was 6,334 shares. I added 8 new shares to TDAC. That increased my total shares to 6,342. And my past income for this position was $2,419.58. It is now $2,422.64. That's a monthly difference of only $3.06. But hey, $3.06 is a monthly difference. If we multiply that by 12, that increased our yearly income by $36.67. And we can see our old monthly income went from $61.91 to $61.94. And our yearly income went from $74,294 to $74,330. So that's a pretty nice increase right there. And yeah, all these numbers are the same based on the current market data. Now, one thing I do want to point out that I have not tracked my cost basis. Here is the cost basis of the capital that's been invested into the market, but I haven't tracked of the dividends that have been paid out. What portion of them did I use for my expenses, and what portion of them have been reinvested back into my portfolio? That's something I haven't tracked, and it's really hard for me to go back and track how much of the dividends wasn't actually used to cover expenses and how much of it was able to dollar cost average that price down or buy more shares, right? Increasing my yield on cost. That portion right there is not in true cost basis. So this is just a rough estimate of my total cost basis in the current market value. That's the accurate portion of it all. So I just want to make that clear. of how much. Yeah, you can see our tracker has been going on for quite a while, right? We started this quite a while ago. So I like to see that data. So that is the dividend portfolio. Now, the next thing I would like to do before we dive into the Robinhood portfolio is take a look at our updated command center before I explain the accounts, okay? So jumping over to the updated command center, and let's go ahead and make this just a little bit bigger there. Hopefully you guys can see everything. Now, the way that my account setup is that I have my margin account. It's the brokerage account. I'm using between $125,000 to $135,000 of margin, and this is a controlled factor. Right now, I sold my rental property. I had other cash in my account. I have other cash from my escrow. That's about $105,000 to about $110,000 of just cash that I could easily pay down the margin in the future without any problems. So this margin could be easily paid down to very minimal. But I still would like to use margin within this account, even if it's paid down. I eventually want to bump up that margin use. So just some information, right? Okay, so I have my margin account and I have these dividends and miscellaneous income that's generated in here. So dividends comes back into the account. Miscellaneous income can be interest, it can be cash back, it can be capital from my YouTube, my Facebook page, my affiliates and referrals, and other miscellaneous income from my real estate business. This kind of gets funneled into my margin account. It gets invested into appreciating ETFs that have a high yield. They produce future income and they have almost no or little NAV erosion. So that's the brokerage end. Now, that's the margin account portion. Now, I have a second account that's called the cash account. It's my spending hub. So every single month on the first, I move the exact amount of cash out of the margin account just in time. So the mechanic I use here is just in time. I draw the exact liable amount transferred to my cash account on the last business day to minimize my interest drawn from my margin account, because every day that you have capital pulled out of your margin account, you get charged daily interest. So I have a just in time kind of mechanic. So at the very day before it's due, so the capital gets drawn from my margin account, placed into my cash account one day prior to my mortgage getting drawn, and then the amount gets pulled out, and then it gets withdrawn out of the cash account. Same thing with the car loan. The exact amount gets pushed into the cash account, it gets pulled out for the car loan, and it basically stays at a zero. Then I also have my credit card statement. Credit cards due on the 5th. So again, I send over all my daily expenses. My bills are being applied to that credit card on a monthly basis, the Robinhood 3% cashback card. And then I moved, again, the exact amount needed one day prior to the credit card needed to be paid off. And then I pay down that to zero. So this cash account is basically just a quick, you send over the specific amount that's needed at the one day prior notice, and then it pays these down. It pays down the mortgage, the car loan payment, the credit card payment, and then everything else just remains inside of the margin account. And then every week on a weekly basis, I go into my credit card and I redeem all the cash back, boom, back into my margin account, and that minimizes the daily interest again by doing this. And I feel like that's a pretty good setup right here. So I'm minimizing how much margin interest I'm trying to generate on a day-to-day basis. And that leads into my margin tracker. Now, this is updated as of now. We can see that our current margin use is $130,930.06. So we pop over now to Robinhood and we take a look here at this. Our margin used, as we see right here, is $130,930.06. So that is perfect. Our portfolio value here, 354, 923, 354, 923, and 7 cents. So I put in this data right here. This is automatically updated with some information now. It manually pulls the margin use, the maintenance required. It automatically adjusts my net change. So from last week to this week, based on the buys that I performed last week. So last week I did $221.36 of buys. That was my TDAC position that I purchased. I had T-SPY pay out dividends of $2,046.78. I had cash in of $53.38. I believe this was cash that either I transferred in, I had cash back, or I had some other, or interest. I had interest, cash back, and I think I transferred some cash in. So that's $53.38. And then I had a cash out of $391.66. So this is me. The mortgage is coming up. I had some capital still sitting in my cash account from the last month. So I transferred a large amount from my last payment back in May for T-SPY into my cash account, and it just sat there. And I needed a specific amount. I needed $391.66 to cover the mortgage. So I transferred that into the cash account. It paid down the mortgage for the month, and then everything else is fine. I had no margin interest last week. My margin buffer remains in that 65 percentile. My dollar cushion is 235,000. My margin rate last week was 4% versus this week, right? So now we going into this week right now, the 5th through the 11th of July, our portfolio is as it shows right here. And all of our margin data, I haven't, we dropped our margin use by $1,487.14 from last week into this week. So that's good. We've done no buys. We've had no dividends or cash in, cash out, or margin interest, right? It's a clean slate going into this week. And let's go ahead and take a look at our account. So as of Friday, on Friday, right, this is kind of like last portion of the video here. So on the last day of Friday, we had an increase there on the day of 0.73. On the week, our week performance, you can see right through here. So on Monday was the 29th. So here's the 29th data brought on through here. This is including last Friday and through here. And then here is Monday. Again, Monday was pretty positive. Tuesday was pretty positive. And then we rolled into Thursday. The first was that Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday. Okay, Wednesday, the market did begin to kind of sell off a bit into Wednesday and then do a mid-day recovery. And then Thursday, we had that job data come out and the market kind of sold off. We saw that sell off on SPY. And then it bounced up and then kind of closed essentially in the middle for the week. So, we did have a little bit of a couple dips throughout the week, but overall for the 1 week performance, we're up 1.59%. And we were, up at 360,000 middle of the week before kind of falling back down. But hey, we're fine. We're still in this range. We're pretty healthy at the moment. We're much higher than we were at the beginning of the year with this account. I know I have some screenshots from back in November, right around November, December. We were talking about leaving from our brokerage, and I had a portfolio around 340,000. So here we are 7 months later, living from our brokerage, pulling capital out on a monthly basis and using it to cover expenses and living, without the 8 to 5 and from our brokerage. So it's all working as intended. So that's all working good. And on a monthly basis, I do believe we're probably down on a monthly basis at the moment. Let's take a look at the monthly. Yeah, we're down a smidge here at 0.23% on the month. But, it's been a rough month this past month. So everything else is looking pretty dang good. So I got a lot of these numbers as close as I could. So here's our portfolio value. That's all matching up in here. The margin used, where's my margin used? It's right here. That's all correct as well. The 06, this is showing 07 now. And then the maintenance required, the number that I'm using gets me really close. 121, 538, 59, 538, 62. So it's not perfect, but it's close for my spreadsheet numbers. And it's easy to kind of get here I like to track it on a week-to-week basis and see how this moves. If it goes into this above 135. So for example, if this was 136,000, then it would be flagged a little bit too high. But I want to keep my margin between 125 to 135. I'll probably continue to pay down my margin down to about 125 and maintain it right around there. Maintain my margin being used right around 125,000, and then on a monthly basis, whatever is not used to pay down my expenses, I'll be using that a dollar cost average for the month going forward, if that makes sense. So hopefully everything here made kind of sense, and this financial strategy of my dual system made sense as well. I know this is an updated system now for my, my way here, but I kind of go through the whole process of it all. So guys, that is going to be it for today's video. If you guys have any questions, comments, definitely join the Discord server. There's a link down in the pinned comment down below where you guys can join it. It's completely free. You can ask questions in there. And also check out the pinned comment for some goodies. You guys can get between $75 to $475 right now for signing up for SoFi Money. It's a high yield saved account, so I'd recommend if you haven't signed up for SoFi yet, sign up, get the free 75 up to 475. And then there's $75 or $25 for sign up for the SoFi Invest and some other goodies as well. So that is going to be it for me. Again, if you have any questions, drop them into the comment section down below. Smash that subscribe and smash that thumbs up. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.